Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and remain standing for a prayer read by Lodge Chaplain Tony Atkins. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty God, the day of September 11, 2001 will be indelible in our inscribed memories. We looked with honor on the terrorist attacks of 9/11. But we looked with honor on acts of courage by ordinary people who sacrificed themselves to prevent further death and destruction. We shed our tears in a common bond of grief for those we loved and lost. We journeyed through a dark valley, but your light has led us to a place of hope. You have turned our grief into determination. We are resolved to do what is good and right and just. Help us to remember what it means to be Americans and people endowed with abundant blessings. Help us to cherish the freedoms we enjoy and inspire us to stand with courage, united as one nation in the midst of adversity. Lord, hear this prayer for our nation. Amen.
Thank you, Tony. Before the start of our annual ceremony, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the present and read a passage from the Blue Sky Remembrance Wall, which is the last panel on the 9/11 exhibit currently on display at Kennedy Library. If you have a chance to stop by to visit their exhibit, please do so. 2 decades have passed since the 9/11 attacks, and terrorism remains a global threat. We may never be able to prevent all of the actions of people intent on harming others, but we do have control over how we respond to such events. Whether by volunteering in our local communities, serving our nation in the Capitol, caring for the sick and injured, or through our efforts, all of us can help build the world in which we want to live. As we witness the history unfolding in our time, the ways we choose to respond, both large and small, can demonstrate the best of human nature after even the worst of days. Today is September 11th, and we are all here to commemorate the events that took place 2 decades ago. I am honored to be standing in front of you as one of the speakers representing our lodge as we perform this remembrance ceremony for our community. May the lives remembered, the deeds recognized, and the spirit reawakened be eternal beacons which reaffirm respect for life, strengthen our resolve to preserve freedom, and inspire an end to hatred, ignorance, and intolerance. These words are part of the mission statement of the National September 11 Memorial and Museum at the World Trade Center in New York City. As we know, freedom is the cornerstone of the American way of life, and on September 11, 2001, our lives were forever changed. Today, we acknowledge the 20-year anniversary of the day we witnessed a purposeful, large-scale destruction of innocent and defenseless lives on American soil. Just as December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day, defined a generation, September 11 helped shape who we are and what we believe in. It reminded us how fragile our freedom can be. But the day holds countless stories of survival, courage, and heroism, which also revealed the strength of freedom. We pay tribute by honoring those who lost their freedom on 9/11 and those brave warriors who have made the ultimate sacrifice by defending our freedom since that date. Thousands lost their lives when 2 planes crashed into the World Trade Center, another into the Pentagon, and a 4th plane heading towards Washington, D.C., which fell in a Pennsylvania field. When the towers fell, 749 New Jersey residents, 3 from Piscataway, lost their lives. We felt shock, disbelief, and anguish. And as a country, we mourned and searched for answers. But more importantly, we gathered the strength to move forward. On December 18, 2001, President George W. Bush signed Joint Resolution 71, presented by the U.S. House of Representatives, designating September 11th of each year as Patriot Day. On this day, the President directs that the American flag be flown at half-staff and for a moment of silence beginning at 8:46 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, commemorating the time the first plane crashed on September 11, 2001. This morning, we gather to remember the people we lost that day. We have all seen or heard the phrase, "America will never forget." And 20 years later, Piscataway Elks, number 2414, has gathered again to hold true to that claim. At this time, I would like to introduce Marie Kleeman, our Americanism Chair and Lodge member who created this Remembrance Ceremony.
As we and the rest of the country mark the 20th anniversary of this event, many of you have already revisited the emotions you felt in the moments that followed these terrorist attacks. On that clear sky blue morning of 9/11, our focus began as we watched with horror the tragedy unfolding on our television screens as the Twin Towers were engulfed in flames and slowly collapsed. As we understood the enormity of what we were witnessing, think about the courage of our policemen and firemen who rushed into 2 burning towers to get thousands to safety. Little did we know that only a short time later, more tragedy would befall us, as a plane crashed into a section of the Pentagon and more lives were senselessly lost. I would like to read a short poem entitled "Why" from an unknown author, while Holmes Marshal Assistant Fire Chief Jeff Cooper is joined by Assemblyman Joseph Danielson, Congressman Bob Smith, Mayor Brian Waller, and Lieutenant Chris Young as they light a candle to remember those who lost their lives at the Twin Towers and at the Pentagon. This poem has now been inscribed as part of our memorial here at the Lodge. Why? Grief and sorrow struck this nation in an unexplainable way, leaving us surrounded by tears and sorrow, and only one thing left to say. Why? Why did this have to happen? What did we do so wrong? Why did you have to take our loved ones? How do you replace those who are gone? But we still will not go quietly. We will stand up and fight. United, we will stand together for what is true, what is right. Heroes rose out of the ashes to save a life we thought was lost, never thinking what might happen, never caring what the cost. They didn't do it for the glory. They didn't do it for the fame. They only did what they knew was right. They are our heroes who have no name. United, we can build a better tomorrow. Let us finish what they began to start. Let us say a prayer for them together and keep them close in heart.
Thank you, Marie. would like to introduce Lodge officers Jamie Gill and Carly Jelinski.
As we all know, the next planned attack, a flight originally scheduled to land in San Francisco, was hijacked in midair and was headed towards our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Getting information via cell phones and with the realization of terrorist plans underway, 40 courageous passengers and crew of Flight 93 took matters into their own hands. As they stormed the cabin of the plane to save lives of perhaps hundreds of innocent people as the plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We have since come to recognize Todd Beamer's phrase, "Let's roll." While I read a poem entitled "Let's Roll," Bobby Martineau, Elk member and creator of our original monument, will light a candle in their memory. They were on a flight going from here to there. Just another day, each without a care. Then they got the news about the WTC, and then they realized the next one is we. Some of them were moved forward, the rest moved to the rear, and it's hard to imagine the helplessness and fear. But they must have got to talking and figured out their plight, that the list of bombers, they were the next flight. Wonder what went through their minds and how much they were scared. But when they thought the USA, they realized how much they cared. We think about heroes and those on the front line. Then they all heard, "Let's roll." They knew it was time to step up and sacrifice whatever it may take, and made the call most of us hope never to make. They went down in victory, the first against the terrorists, showed the will of Americans is strong and still exists. They stood up for America, knew what they had to do, and let's not ever forget, they did it for me and you. Nobody will ever know what went on in that plane. We just know that it added to the misery and pain. We all had enough on that September day, but they just gave us more to pray for the same way. Another bunch of lost souls, even lost on 9/11. But they aren't truly lost, for they found their niche in heaven.
In an effort to tie the three events of September 11th together, the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and United's Flight 93, a 2-ton, 14-foot high cross made out of steel from the World Trade Center was transported on Saturday, August 23, 2008, from New York to Shanksville, Pennsylvania, volunteer fire department, as part of a monument in front of the firehouse to honor those who gave their lives on United's Flight 93. As hundreds of firefighters, policemen, and citizens throughout New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania proudly waved our country's flag and bowed their heads in prayer, the steel cross made a 311-mile journey, accompanied by hundreds of motorcyclists, many of them current or retired New York firefighters. On September 10, 2011, the first part of Flight 93 National Memorial, which is located at the site of the crash in Shanksville, was dedicated, and on September 10, 2015, the Visitor Center was opened. And as visitors to this site gather together, the Tower of Voices, a 93-foot tall musical instrument made of steel and concrete, holding 40 wind chimes, one dedicated to each of the 40 heroes that took back the plane after it was hijacked during the terrorist attacks, will peal forth. What was a common field one day is now a field of honor forever. In New York City in 2011, at the site of the World Trade Center, the National September 11 Memorial opened. The memorial's twin reflecting pools are each nearly an acre in size and feature the largest man-made waterfalls in North America. The pools sit within the footprints where the Twin Towers once stood. The names of every person who died in the 2001 attacks are inscribed into bronze panels edging the memorial pools, a powerful reminder of the largest loss of life resulting from a foreign attack on American soil. In 2014, the Memorial Museum opened at the site.
Thank you, Jamie and Carly. In 2016, Bob Martineau created a replica of the Twin Towers from the trunk of a fallen tree in front of our lodge. Sadly, weather took its toll on our monument, and those towers succumbed to nature. Noting this, Corey Pine, a member of Boy Scout Troop 67, inquired about a project to be completed at our lodge in order to earn his Eagle Scout badge. Noting the new foundation for the towers provided by lodge member Frank Contessa, with Corey's insightful planning and help from his fellow Troop 67 members, family, and friends, you now see before you a truly impressive 9/11 Memorial Garden. All these monuments stand to remind us and future generations of the events of September 11, 2001, and to honor the mothers and fathers, the sons and daughters, the neighbors and friends who lost their lives on that fateful day. Let us take a moment to remember Harry Glenn, age 38, Liming Gu, age 34, and Yes Tembi, age 59, all residents of Piscataway who didn't make it home on September 11th. Our fallen heroes' lives were not in vain. We will remember the hundreds of uniformed personnel and civilians who sacrificed their lives by running into the towers, the heroes who remained in the towers to help others escape, the brave passengers and crew of United Flight 93, and we will remember the 184 unsuspecting victims in the Pentagon. I would also like to take time to remember the survivors of 9/11. They are special people who have gone through pain and suffering, difficult losses, and life-altering experiences. We can't begin to comprehend the emotions they have endured. We have the utmost respect for them, and they will remain in our thoughts and prayers. At this time, I'd like to introduce Pat McDonald as a fellow member Elk and 9/11 survivor.
Keep it short, right? I worked at the U.S. Post Office on 29th Street, Manhattan. When we noticed the two planes hit the towers, we were there when the towers came down. We couldn't get home to Jersey. All the ferries came later, but the tunnels were shut down. Buses and trains and subways were shut down. We had to walk up to 220. I went to a friend's house up on 225th Street in the Bronx. We walked all the way up there. It's about 20 miles. And as we were walking, we saw other people passing us that were in the towers. They were caked with dust and, soil and all that stuff. I still remember where I was that day, and the things can't get out of my mind. The images can't get out of my mind. So I just want to say, don't forget, never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Since the heroic events that unfolded on that fateful day, tens of thousands of U.S. troops have been injured or have given the ultimate sacrifice on the war against terrorism in the continued fight for our freedom. Two of our lodge members, lodge veterans, Bill Kleeman and Harry Newton, will light the candle in honor or memory. Thank you. I would like to ask everyone to remain seated for a musical interlude as we take a moment to reflect and remember all those we have lost. During this time, feel free to come up and light a candle in memory or in honor of your loved one.
And swimming without it. The days go on. I remember you, my friend. And though you're gone, and my heart's been empty, it seems. I see you in my dreams. I got the old guitar here by the bed. All your favorite records and all the books that you read. And though my soul feels like it's been split at the seams, I'll see you in my dreams. I'll see you in my dreams. When all our summers have come to an end, I'll see you in my dreams. We'll meet and love again. I'll see you in my dreams. Yeah, around the riverbed, for death is not the end. I'll see you in my dreams.
We have lit the candles of remembrance and reflected upon the emotions of this day. At this time, I would like to thank Boy Scout Troop 67 once again for participating in today's ceremony, and the Holmes Marshall Fire Department. I now have the pleasure to introduce Senator Bob Smith, who lives here in Piscataway, a former mayor as well, now representing the 17th Legislative District.
Morning, everybody. This morning, I and Assemblyman Danielson had the honor to participate in a 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony in North Brunswick. As we were driving over to attend Piscataway's ceremony, the roll call was being played over all the radio stations at the site in New York City where the remembrance is going on. And as you listen to name after name after name, you realize just how enormous the act of terrorism had on our country. 20th anniversaries are significant. And one of the things that's been happening nationally, and if you're a newspaper reader, and I'm an avid newspaper reader, there has been enormous analysis of the last 20 years and what you can expect in the future. How 9/11 changed all of our lives, and it has. And as you go through the areas, they talk about how it's changed culture, how it's changed the economy, history. And by the way, on the history side of it, nobody agrees on anything. You know, there's a whole big discussion about Iraq, Afghanistan. You know, what does it all mean for the future? And you know what? We Americans, we don't always agree on stuff. All right, so you're never going to get any agreement, I think, universally on that kind of a thing. Healthcare. You know, we still have people who are dying from 9/11. We still have people who are exhibiting various forms of very obscure cancers that are clearly resulting from the exposure to the toxic materials and dusts as they were part of the rescue efforts and as part of the the cleanup effort of the site. So it keeps on having an impact on family and lives. And talk about the 3,000 people. You know, as they're reading the names again at the ceremony, frequently they'll have the granddaughter up who'll read the name, and she'll say, "Grandpa, I never had a chance to meet you, but I hear you were really a wonderful person." And on and on and on like that. So this event really has changed our lives. 20-year anniversaries give you a chance to regroup and rethink. So let me suggest that we do that. Let's regroup and rethink. And the rethinking is, let's not argue about any of these various issues, but let's find the common things that we can agree on. So let me throw them out there. Number one, everybody sitting here today can agree that we have to remember those who lost their lives in the various incidents around the country. And we also should do our very best to provide comfort to their survivors. Is that a principle we can all agree should be done? All right, number two, similarly, we need to recognize our first responders. And when you think about this, both police, fire, rescue, other groups and organizations, they really didn't know what they were going into. You know, in fact, our government got it wrong. Our government later on said, "Oh, it's safe. You know, you can go in there, you can do your reconstruction and cleanup work." It was not safe. The stuff that people was exposed to is now causing cancers 20 years later. But they did it unselfishly and heroically. We all agree they're heroes, but you know, just saying your hero is you are a hero is not enough. We have to make sure that we continue to appreciate their service both then and their continuing service to all of us. And finally, there is another group that we need to cherish and appreciate, and that is, over the course of these 20 years and in future years, there are people who have provided acts of compassion and charity to those individuals that served and to those families that had losses. We should acknowledge them and recognize them. So I wish we weren't going to these ceremonies. I wish this thing had never happened. But because it did, America, the Elks, and all of us are recognizing the true impact on all of us, and we recognize the people who really have helped us get through it. You know, I don't know about you, but there are days when I don't feel like getting out of bed. And this is one of those days. I mean, it's just a very, very, very tough thing to remember and to process. So let's agree on those basic principles. Let's not fight about stuff, or at least as much as we can. Let's not fight about stuff. And let me wish you a great day. God bless you all.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Assemblyman Joseph Danielson, representing the 17th Legislative District.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank the Elks and all its members for partnering with me every year to provide the children with backpacks and starting their school year off successfully with pride. All kids want to be the same, and it's just a great thing you do. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on New York, Shanksville, PA, and the Pentagon. Today we recall and we celebrate what we learned about ourselves on 9/11, 2001. We also recall and we celebrate how we acted on that day. These ceremonies are today and always will be a remembrance to the tribute to both the living and those who have passed. We mark this special date and recall all those affected by this tragedy, those who died, the loved ones, the friends, the colleagues, all who are injured, and those who are still mourning. We also recall the selfless acts of the first responders, the firefighters, police, chaplains, emergency workers, construction workers, and other brave individuals who risked and many times lost their lives in the service of others. Today, while some tried to break us, America stands tall, and America stands proud. Guided by the values that sustain us, it is these values and our combined strength that will only have us grow stronger. Generations from now, Americans will still build towers that reach to the heavens, still serve in embassies around the globe that stand for freedom, and still wear the uniform and give meaning to those words written 2 centuries ago. The land of the free, the home of the brave. Our challenges today must be to never let our spirit of unity be damaged, but rather rekindled for a renewed devotion of the rule of law and the mutual respect for all human life. That is the true human American spirit that we all owe those who fell on 9/11. Americans will never stand down. Americans will always endure. Americans will overcome. And we, as Americans, will own the finish line. I ask God that he blesses all of you and the United States of America.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor Brian C. Waller.
Thank you, Exalted Ruler Chapman. Before I make a few comments, I would like to acknowledge some of the other officials that are here today, starting with our Middlesex County Commissioner, Chanel McCollum. She's here. We also have, I know Councilman Shaw is just pulling in. He's our council president here in Piscataway Township. We have our Vice Council President, Michelle Lombardi. Councilwoman at Large, Gabrielle Cahill. Councilman at Large, Linwood Rouse. Second Ward Councilman, Jim Ballard, who's behind me. First Ward Councilman, Frank Earn. Fourth Ward Councilwoman, Michelle Lombardi. And I see Councilman Khan should be pulling into the parking lot shortly. I would like to acknowledge also District 2 Fire Commissioner Steve Wiseman, who's behind me, as well as Mee Doe, another fire commissioner from District 2. And I believe we have a member from the Board of Education, Kimberly Lane. There's Kim right there. And I want to thank Troop 67 for being here. And also, obviously, what goes out saying the 2414 Lodge for hosting this event today. Thank you, and thank you for all of you for being here today. A day like it was weather-wise on September 11th, 2011. Some of you may be here to remember the lives lost that tragic day 2 decades ago. Some of you may be here for those lost in the days, months, and years from the exposure at Ground Zero. Some of you may be here to respect for the first responders, their duty, their honor, and their loss. Some may be here for those who were in the military or who had joined in the hectic days following the attack. All of us here, though, know the victims. The first responders, the service members, have families. They have friends. The lives affected by the day are perhaps too numerous to count. Some of you may be among those I've named. To you, our hearts go out to you. You are our fellow Americans and you have sacrificed. 20 years has elapsed since that fateful day. Yet, to many, the pain is still deep. To all, the loss is always profound. Now among us are many young Americans who knew no time before 9/11, like many of the Troop 67 scouts. Our world changed that day. To those born after, they never knew a country that seemed safe from such an assault. But today, we are together. We mourn and we remember. Let us continue to stand together as one community and one country. Thank you, Exalted Ruler, and thank you, 2414 Lodge, for hosting this event again, as you do every year.
Thank you. I also want to make mention, we also received regret from Congressman Pallone in the form of a letter commending us today for today's ceremony. At this time, I'd like to introduce Piscataway Police Lieutenant Chris Young to say a few words.
Good morning. Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Chris Young. I'm a lieutenant with the Piscataway Police Department. I've been a police officer for 24 years. I was working the morning of 9/11. I remember it vividly. I walked up to the desk on a menial task and I saw that the tower was burning, the first tower. And as I sat there, I watched the second tower get hit and I knew that the country was under attack. That day, so many first responders went to the towers to help. Many were not working, but they still went. Everyone wanted to be there to help. The courage and bravery of those who went should be remembered. The firefighters and the police officers who went into the towers, many did not come out. Their selfless sacrifice should be remembered. What I remember most about 9/11 and the days after was the unity and bonding of the citizens of this country. We all came together and were united. American flags were displayed everywhere. It was truly awesome to see. I have been fortunate to work as a police officer in this township for 24 years. I have seen the heroism and bravery of our police officers. Just like those who selflessly responded to the towers, our officers respond to work every day to protect this community. I am proud to be a police officer in this town and to work alongside so many fine officers. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. May God bless you and your families and those who lost loved ones on 9/11. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce past Special Deputy Grand Exalted Ruler Francis J. DeCibas.
Thank you, Exalted Ruler, distinguished leaders of the civic community, members of the Elks. Throughout our nation today, in some way, shape, or form, our lodges are hosting 9/11 ceremonies, whether they be independently or whether they be formed in a community effort. But many of you may not know that one of the mottos that we have in our order is for veterans. And the motto is, so as long as there are veterans, the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks will never forget them. And we have not. Since the end of during the World War I and on. But our very principles of our order, being charity, justice, brotherly love, and fidelity, brings us here today for their remembrance of 9/11 and all our patriotic days, including Flag Day, which is a mandatory service put on by the Benevolent Protective Order of Elks. So I thank Piscataway Lodge number 2414 for hosting this ceremony today and not forgetting those who gave their sacrifice, not that they knew they were going to leave that day and go to work and be killed, not that they were going to get on an airplane and know they were going to be killed, but also for us and for all of us to remember those who gave that ultimate sacrifice and to honor and give tribute to the first responders throughout our nation for what they did in their own communities, especially in Pennsylvania, New York, and Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francis. I'd now like to introduce New Jersey Elks Central District Vice President Chris Sauer of South Plainfield Lodge.
Good morning, everyone. On 9/11, all of our lives changed forever. It just didn't happen to Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., or New York. it happened to all of America. For some of us, it was tragic, a loss of a loved one or friend. What we all felt was the loss of feeling safe on our own shores. Bombings, terrorist attacks prior to 9/11 was something that occurred someplace else, not America. It took countless months for EMS, fire, and police, as well as many representatives of the armed forces, to perform the grueling task sorting through the rubble, which was at first a search for life, but then sadly became a search for closure. September 11 serves as a reminder to us all that life can be instantly changed. Life is fleeting. It also teaches us to be vigilant in the protection of the way of our life, the support of our EMS, police, fire, vets, and armed forces. God bless and keep safe the United States of America. Bless those innocent souls who lost their lives on this tragic day. Thank you, Piscataway Lodge, for inviting me to this wonderful remembrance of 9/11. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes our Patriot Day Remembrance Ceremony. God bless America and God bless our troops. And thank you all for coming, and please join us for some light refreshments. Thank you.